Let's face it, no one's perfect. You're not perfect, your team members aren't perfect. And sometimes we as leaders have to provide constructive feedback to our team members. It is an art form. Feedback that is too critical or too harsh or interpreted that way can stop a high performer in their tracks. And feedback that is unclear might leave a high performer confused as to what is expected of them. If you hit that sweet spot of constructive feedback that encourages your team member and communicates in the language that they understand, constructive feedback can turn a nightmare project into a miracle. My name is Kathy. I am here with Motivation Code. Motivation Code is an assessment that helps you as a leader better understand your team, helps your team members understand themselves as well as each other. Understanding each other allows us to communicate in language that we all resonate with. It helps us find greater fulfillment and it makes even difficult projects much easier. If you want to learn more about Motivation Code, head to motivationcode.com. We can learn how to bring this great technology into your organization. What is constructive feedback? Constructive feedback is any feedback whatsoever, but what distinguishes it from destructive feedback is how you communicate it. Constructive feedback usually provides clear and actionable information that the recipient understands. It specifies behaviors and desired outcomes and focuses on individuals' work performance rather than the individual themselves. It highlights opportunities for learning and growth. Destructive feedback is the opposite. It's often vague, unclear, generalizes judgments towards an individual, contains the word always, such as, you always seem to do this thing, focuses on past examples of low performance and often blames an individual for a circumstance. Destructive feedback focuses on errors or missteps as insurmountable obstacles that an individual can never overcome. Now, providing constructive feedback is really important for a high functioning team. If you want your team to be high functioning, they have to have trust in you as a leader, trust in their peers, and even trust in themselves. So it's our job as leaders to bolster that trust wherever we can. Oftentimes, high performers have high levels of criticism within themselves. It's up to us to ferret out some of this criticism and reframe it so that it is constructive, so that it bolsters our team members' self-esteem. As leaders, we want our team members to show up 100%. We want them to bring all that they are into a job. That means all of their motivational dimensions. If they're an achiever, we want to support that. If they're an optimizer, we want to ensure that they feel the freedom to bring all of their skills into the job. In order to do that, we have to eradicate self-doubt, eradicate self-criticism, and let our people know that we trust them to do the job at hand. Constructive feedback with an individual is not just a positive for them, it's a positive for the entire organization. Now, how do you give positive feedback? Something is not being done in the way it should be done, or that you see how it could be done better. The first thing to do is to take a moment and really plan that conversation. What do you want to say, and what is the outcome that you desire? If your outcome is to just be heard that you have a critical thing to say about something, perhaps you might want to put yourself in your team member's shoes. They want to feel empowered. They want to feel ownership of a job well done. So, how do we get them there? Plan that conversation. Make sure you have clarity on the purpose of the conversation, and that is to empower the person you're communicating with. Define the outcome for yourself and consider questions you might ask. Maybe there's just missing information. So asking questions of your direct report can help you ferret out whether or not they have all the information they need to do the job you expect of them. Make sure, if you're going to have a sensitive conversation like this, that you do it in person or at least over Zoom or Google Meet or some other visual medium. This way, if there are unconscious cues, you can pick up on them. And also, if you aren't setting unconscious cues in your communication, your employee is going to fill those in based on imagined fears that may or may not be true. You want to be able to control as many channels of communication as possible, and that includes nonverbal cues. If you're communicating constructive criticism via text-only messages, there are a lot of things left unsaid. Your team member will fill in the blanks with whatever fear or self-doubt they have running in their head. You want to avoid that. One technique for communicating criticism is the feedback sandwich. In this way, you have two elements of positive feedback and one element that could be construed as negative. And what you do is you layer that. So you give positive communication, the negative feedback, and then more positive communication. In this way, we set up the communication in a way that we are giving as much positive feedback as possible so that our team member knows that we value them. Here's one example of providing a feedback sandwich. Now, make sure that whatever you're giving feedback on is all about the same project. You can't say, oh, well, last year you did a great job on this project, but this year you're doing something a little bit different and we're not quite so sure how this is working out. But last year it was also great. That way you're contrasting too much. You want to make sure that it's focused on one singular project. So here's an example. Let's say we have a team member who's putting together a project plan for marketing communication. And we are seeing some great things, but there's one thing missing. So we might want to say, hey, wow, you have done a great job on this project plan. You've really thought through all of the things that we need to do. And you're contributing to all of the team's objectives. We're really happy that you're taking initiative on this. One thing that we see missing, here's something that can be construed negatively. One thing that we're seeing missing is healthcare. Healthcare is one of our most crucial segments, and we're not seeing it addressed in this plan. Is this something you're considering? Leave that open for feedback back from that employee so that they can say, oh, yeah, well, I was thinking about healthcare, but I was going to do that in a separate plan altogether because I know it's so important. Solves that problem. And then, even if you get that problem solved in that way, still come back with more praise. We also noticed that part of this project plan, you really outlined the metrics that are going to be used that will tell us how this project is successful or not. No one's ever done it with a project quite like this, and we love that you're doing that. We hope that you can take some initiative to make sure that those metrics end up in our reporting system, if that's possible. You can finalize that conversation saying that you're so happy you got some clarity and give some broad praise of that employee's overall job performance. It's also really helpful when you're communicating to an employee in a sensitive way that you understand their motivational dimension. At Motivation Code, we provide an assessment that allows you to really understand how your team members are motivated. Now, if you have an achiever, you might not want to give feedback to them that says, well, you need to fall in line like everyone else. That just does not line up with how an achiever is motivated. If you have an optimizer, you might not want to tell them that they need to loosen the reins on some of their processes. You want to celebrate those unique skills that an optimizer brings to a project. When you can communicate specifics in a way that resonates with your team members, your communication is going to show up much more empowering and much more fulfilling to your team members. Now, of course, it's important when you're communicating constructive feedback to come back to that employee and visit with them later to see how things are going. In our feedback sandwich example, we talked about healthcare, and our employee said, well, they're going to address that differently. Set up a time when you can go over that so they can present to you how they have thought through that important market segment. That will give them a sense of ownership and a sense of really showing leadership that they are on the ball. If you're still having issues with an employee and improvements are still needed, ensure that your feedback was adequate. Did your feedback provide actionable goals, clarity on the roadmap and the goals of a project, or measurable ways of determining some improvement? Ask your employee, are they feeling confident with these goals? If they're not feeling confident, they may be their own worst enemy, overcompensating for imagined expectations that you might not even have. Conversations that address your employees' unique motivational dimensions are conversations that are going to empower them. It's also going to help you better know your employees so that you, as a leader, can be of better service in empowering them and helping them get those roadblocks out of the way. I hope this video was helpful to you. Are you having issues with constructive criticism? We'd love to hear from you. Drop your comments below. Let's try to solve some of these issues together. If you'd like more information about dealing with constructive criticism, there's a blog post linked in the description box below, where you can learn also about how to deal with defensive reactions if you have an employee who reacts negatively to constructive criticism, no matter how positively you frame it. Thanks for watching here at Motivation Code. We'll see you next time.